Welcome to Sports Spectrum, the sports and faith podcast that brings Jesus back into the conversation. Here's your host, Jason Romano.
This episode of the Sports Spectrum podcast with Patrick and Bo Nix is sponsored by Compassion International. Go to compassion.com/sportspectrum. $38 a month. Sponsor a child in Jesus' name. This is your chance to release a child from poverty. Food, education, clothing, vocational training. We're talking about releasing a child from poverty, all being done in the name of Jesus. Compassion does it right. Go to compassion.com/sportspectrum and sponsor a child today. Today's guest on the podcast, father and son, Patrick and Bo Nix. Patrick Nix, former Auburn quarterback from 1992 to 1995. He played under some great coaches, Terry Bowden, Tommy Bowden, Jimbo Fisher. They were all there at Auburn when Patrick Nix was the quarterback, and he passed for almost 5,000 yards and 31 touchdowns in his college career and was part of that Auburn undefeated team back in 1993. He's coached college football and high school football, and just last year, he started his first season as the head football coach at Pinson Valley High School in Alabama, and he didn't just have a good season. He led the Indians to a 6A AHSAA state championship win, the first state football championship in Pinson Valley High School history. And Patrick's son also joins us here on the podcast, and Patrick's son, Bo, is the Pinson Valley High School starting quarterback, and he is the 2017 high school state championship game MVP last year. Bo is committed to Auburn, going to follow in his dad's footsteps and play college football at Auburn. He also participated in Elite 11 and a bunch of off-season camps and competitions as well. But this podcast is a lot of fun because we talk from two perspectives of a father and son, a coach coaching his son. They won a national championship, and now they're getting ready to defend that national championship in 2018. So it's a really fun kind of story, and I like hearing, this is a perfect kind of Father's Day story, honestly. I like hearing the bond that you can just tell Patrick and Bo have and the respect that Bo has for his dad, and certainly the excitement and the pride that Patrick has in his son, Bo. And the cool thing is they're opening up their high school football schedule Saturday, August 25th on ESPN. Imagine being a high school quarterback and a high school coach, and you open up your season nationally televised on ESPN. That'll be at 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, Saturday, August 25th, and it'll be Pinson Valley, the state high school champions on 6A, going up against Hoover, the state championships from Alabama, 7A, which is, I guess, a level of kids in the school. So that should be a really fun battle for a high school football game to watch, and it'll be on ESPN, so really excited for that. Can't wait for you guys to hear this story. Let's get right to it. Patrick and Bo Nix join us here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. Take a listen to their story. We welcome Patrick Nix and his son, Bo. Welcome, guys.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
Thanks for having us.
Great to talk to you both, Patrick and Bo. I'm excited to have you on the podcast. And let's start with right now. We're taping this. It's mid-August. We're gearing up. August 25th is the opener. It's actually, your guys' game is on ESPN, high school game, which should be really exciting. It's 11 a.m. Central, 12 p.m. Eastern, kickoff on Saturday the 25th. It's so great that we get to talk about football again at that time of the year. And I know Patrick coaching over at Pinson Valley High School and Bo playing for your dad. It must be an exciting time right now. Tell us, let's start with you, Patrick, about what it's like right now as you gear up for the season.
Well, obviously, when you open up on ESPN with all the world watching, it changes your preparation a little bit. It's changed our preparation for the summer. We've had to get a lot more focused and playing a team that is for our state the gold standard in Hoover, in the state of Alabama. They are the best, and so for us to have to play them has definitely amped things up a little bit and made us get a little bit more focused and having to get everything in. But it's exciting, very exciting to be able to play on national television and very exciting to play such a great team.
Bo, it seems like there's never an off season with football, especially you're going into your senior year and you were the state championship game MVP last year, and we'll talk about that state championship run in a second. But how about for yourself preparing and getting ready for your senior year?
Yes, sir. It's just overall, it's been a great experience, and just knowing that it's my last year of high school football, and I've had a great summer with camps, the Elite 11, and certain rivals camps and things like that. So I'm just really thankful to be in this situation, going into my senior season, having a chance to play on ESPN, already having the being blessed of winning a state championship. So overall, I just couldn't write the script any better.
Patrick, tell me about just your feelings in coaching your son. Obviously, you have to coach a football team, but your son happens to be the quarterback and getting ready to go play at the alma mater of the place that you played your college football at Auburn. Tell me about what's kind of going through your mindset. You obviously have to coach a team, but you still have your son that you're kind of watching and progressing and kind of watching his journey as well.
It definitely has its advantages and disadvantages. It's a unbelievable privilege to be able to coach him and to pour into his life and basically disciple him hands on and be in the battles with him. But also at the same time, sometimes you can't be dad all the time because you're coached so much that it's sort of a balancing act. And sometimes we do good with it, and sometimes we don't do very good with it, quite honestly. And we let the emotions flow a little bit, and we have such high expectations for each other, and I want him to reach all of his goals and dreams, and he obviously wants to perform at a level not only to perform and meet his dad's standards, but also his coach's standards. So he has the challenge and issues with that also, and so it has its good days and its bad days, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. I've really enjoyed the years that we've had together, and it's been a lot of fun.
Bo, what's that like having dad as the coach? Obviously, you've been in a lot of camps and been coached by a lot of different people, certainly with the Elite 11, my friend Trent Dilfer running that, and just a lot of great people there. But what's that been like getting coached up by your dad?
I think it's great. I think overall it's a quarterback, a player's dream to have their dad out there with them, and I get to have him out there every single day with me. But like you said, it brings a lot of tough times too at the same time. It's not always easy, not always perfect, but at the end of the day, I know he loves me and just wants what's best for me, and I want what's best for him in the coaching situation. So at the end of the day, it's just really a fun time, and I know every day out of practice he wants to get me better, and he wants to see me do great things. So I wouldn't trade anything.
Is there a way to separate? I'm talking to you, Bo, here for a second. Dad from coach, can you do that, or are they two kind of been intersected for so many years that it's hard to do that?
I definitely think it's hard to do that. I think with him being dad, I can't really look at him any other way because growing up, he's been dad and he's been coaching me at the same time. So he hadn't really been coach until 8th grade when he pulled me up on varsity and had me playing for him. So it is tough to balance dad and coach, and sometimes I do a bad job about it. But at the end of the day, I just know that he wants what's best for the team, and I want what's best for the team. And so just the two of us getting that done is the main priority.
All right, we need to talk about your state championship run last year now, and specifically your quarterfinal game. Patrick, you and I were talking off the air about a week ago before we taped this podcast about that game, and you faced Austin, I believe it was, and basically just living the dream of every coach and every football player in many ways. So I'm going to start with you, Patrick, to set the scene for us, that game, everything that kind of led up to it and what that game was about, because I know we're also going to talk about exactly what transpired in it, because you have to have some courage, I'll just say, to do what you did as a coach to win that game. But take us through and set up that game and kind of what was at stake there.
Well, it was an incredible season. Walking in, this was my first year here at Pinson Valley. Last year was my first year here, and so walking in, knew we had a very good team and had a chance to do some great things. Every week we just continued to get better and ended up the season undefeated. We get into that quarterfinal game, and it was basically the number one team in the state. They were undefeated too, and it was the same team that had knocked Pinson Valley out of the playoffs the 2 years previous. And so one year was really bad. The second year was in overtime. And so we walk in and have to go to their place to play it, and they were extremely good, and we were too. And so it was one of those matchups that it just worked out perfect. It was on Thanksgiving, so it was the Friday of Thanksgiving. Everybody's out of school.
Yeah.
Place is packed. It's exactly what you would dream about of a high school game. The script couldn't have been written any better for the top two teams. Really, really good teams. Their running back has already committed to Auburn and is one of the best players. Actually, won Mr. Alabama, the football player. It was a great player. And then you have, Bo, the quarterback on the other team that everybody feels like is going to Auburn, and the head coach that played at Auburn, and just all those ties. And but it was a lot of fun. It was obviously an incredible game. But just leading up to it, the hype leading up to it of two of the, probably arguably the best two teams in the state facing, going off with each other, and the history that the two teams had in the 2 years prior in the playoffs, matched it up pretty well, and it lived up to the hype for sure.
Well, I'll get to both stats in a minute, but Patrick, why don't you take us through the game, the scoring, and, coming back, I guess, and then the moment when you guys had to make that critical decision at the end.
The game was difficult the whole game. We didn't stop them at all. They scored basically every drive, which we did too. They stopped us on the very first drive. We missed a fourth down conversion, and from that point on, we scored every single drive. They scored every single drive, and they surprised onside kicked us twice and got the two onside kicks. The difference in the game and how we were able to we were down by 7 or 14 the entire game and just kept battling and kept it within a score, the whole game. And they had 2 turnovers in the second half, and those 2 turnovers enabled us to score those 2 times to match the 2 times that they had received the onside kick. And then their last drive, they actually missed the field goal to send it to overtime. So that matched our one drive of them stopping us the very first drive. But every other drive, both teams really couldn't stop each other, and it was a score fest. And but we were down the entire game. At times we were down by 14 points, just trying to catch up, and just kept chasing until finally we tied the game and took it to overtime. And until the very last play of the game, we never had a lead. So it was one of those battles of perseverance and testing your heart and your drive, and where you just continue to chase it and continue to battle it, and our guys did.
Patrick, okay, so take me to you're down at the end, you score. You said it was until the final play of the game until you took the lead. So you're kind of giving away the ending, but we're not completely giving it away because people don't know exactly what happened yet if they're not from probably the state of Alabama. So you're down, it's at the end, and you need a score. So take me through coaching that, and then, Bo, I'll have you take me through playing in that position.
Well, in the regular time before, we got the ball back with about 2 minutes left to go, drove it down the field, and we were getting beat by 8. We were getting beat 49-41 at the time.
So this is in regulation, right?
This is in regulation. We were down 49-41. Okay. Well, we ended up scoring with about 30 seconds left and have to go for 2 to tie the game. And so we score, we go for 2, we tie the game. Then they get the ball back and hit a couple plays, get the ball down inside around our 20-yard line, and have a chance to kick a field goal to win it. They missed the field goal, and so we go to overtime. Well, when we go to overtime, we flip a coin in the state of Alabama in high school. You put the ball on the 10-yard line, and both teams get the ball on the 10, and you see what happens. And so they flipped the coin. We won the coin toss and took defense to see what they would do. Well, they scored on the first play, kicked their extra point, and we had already decided on the sideline, as soon as we won the coin toss and took defense, that if they scored, we scored, we're going for 2. We're going to end the game one way or the other with our offense on the field. Wow. That was our best unit. We're going to end the game one way right then, and it was going to be on our terms, not their terms. Because what I was fearful of is that if they got the ball, the next time we scored, kick our extra point, they'd have the ball, go for 2 and beat us. And I wanted to have it on my terms and not their terms, so to speak. And so we did. They scored the first play, kicked their extra point. We scored our first play. We went for 2 and ended up making it and ended up beating them. I guess it was
the final score was 51-50.
Yeah, final score was 51-50. So I guess I was wrong with it being 49-41. It was whatever else it was. I mean,
That's
it was
okay.
Incredible. Yeah, it was
a lot of
score
points,
fest. The final point was final score was 51-50, and we hit a 2-point conversion in overtime to end the game.
51-50 in overtime. I can't, even just from a person who lives here in Connecticut or New York and watching a game like that, I would have been blown away. It sounds like something like the stuff that dreams are made of. So I got to ask you, Bo, you're the quarterback, right? And obviously you're doing whatever Dad says here in this moment, but You go for 2 to win the state title. So first you got to score the touchdown, right? Because you're down by 7. What did that mean? And take me through your thoughts when you were going for 2 and what was going through your mind there.
So when we got the ball back, we were down by 7, obviously. And before we hit the field, Dad asked me, I'm pretty sure he asked me, he said, you want to tie it or go for 2 to win? And I told him that I wanted to go for 2 to win. And because I knew that I'd rather have it in my hands as opposed to sitting on the sideline and watching the results. So we go out there, and like they scored on the first play, we literally scored on the first play. So I threw a touchdown pass in the end zone, and then we lined up and went for 2. And then so when we lined up and went for 2, we called a play that we ran all the time, and it always worked. It was an old bread and butter play that wasn't real difficult to stop, but it always worked somehow. And so the way we ran it, we were going to run it to a certain side, and the H-back was going to go to the right. And so we're on the left hash, and he was supposed to go to the right. And so when we snapped the ball, he's in front of me, and I saw him go to the left. And so that kind of threw the whole play off track, really. And so it was almost exactly like the movies, how when the ball snaps, everything goes in slow motion.
Yeah.
And so that's really how it was. And everything went you couldn't hear anything. Everything just was focused in and went right to the play right when the ball was snapped, and you couldn't think about anything else. So when I saw him go to the left, I knew that I had to go with him, so I faked it to the running back, ran to the left and threw it, and he caught it and scored. And then that's when I heard everything, and it started to hit reality a little bit that we had won, and the place just went crazy.
I can't imagine. I mean, that's the kind of stuff, like you said, from the movies that you watch, in these different, sort of made up movies on football. A lot of times they have it be in this exact scenario, and they go for 2 and they get it and you win it all. Why not? And you guys are living this. So I wonder, just immediate aftermath, maybe we'll start with you, Bo, and then Patrick, you can kind of pick up the pieces there. Just the emotion that you kind of had, just winning it all. It was the first state title for Pinson Valley. Tell me about just that immediate aftermath. Bo, start with you.
So this was still in the quarterfinals in the 3rd round, so we hadn't even played 4th or 5th round.
That's right.
To win the state championship. So we knew we had done something, but we still hadn't done anything yet. But the fact that we won the game at the time, I wasn't really concerned or worried about anything else. So the game was such a emotional game, and just on the edge of your seat the whole game. Kind of nervous, kind of scared, not knowing exactly what was going to happen. So when I knew that we had won the game and it was in the books, it was a great feeling. I remember we were on the 3-yard line on the other end. So after I completed the pass, I turned and just sprinted to the other end of the field. Why, I have no idea, but that's what I did. And so it was just like, I mean, you think about times like that, what you would do to celebrate, but in the moment, you just you do whatever comes to your head, I guess. And everybody was going crazy. People were tackling each other, just having a good time, and it was just a perfect scene on a football field.
Yeah, Patrick, forgive me. Obviously, you still had 2 more games to win, and you did that in winning your first state title ever. But how about as a coach? Are you allowed to celebrate that kind of a win with 2 more games still to go, or are you focused? You see some of the guys like the Belichicks of the world in the NFL. They're like, it's on to the next game. It's on to the next game. Were you able to kind of enjoy that game for at least a few minutes?
Well, to tell you the backstory of the whole thing, and this will tie into our faith part of it too, is that all season we had went through the story of David and Goliath, and taken one principle a week for 10 weeks from the story of David and Goliath, of how David defeated Goliath. And we applied those all season for 10 weeks. And then we decided when the playoffs hit, we would conclude with David's mighty men. So we went from David and Goliath to talking about David's mighty men. And that week we just happened to be talking about Benaiah when he went down in the snowy pit, in the pit on a snowy day with a lion, and to chase a lion. And we had talked about that during the week, and because we were basically going to a pit on an away game. We're going to have to go in the pit. We're going to have to face the lion. We're going to have to battle. And when we had our one shot, we were going to have to kill it. And we knew it was going to be, we were going to come out scratched up and marred up. And and it was going to be all we had to go into that pit and kill that lion. But so when the game was over, quite honestly, it was just one of those that you just sit back and, you're emotional and you're thinking how unbelievable God is to not only allow you to read about the story in the Old Testament and talk about it, but to almost in a way live it out right there on the field. And, so when you get back in the locker room and you look you players in the eyes, the players look at you, and all of us sat there looking at each other like we just went into a pit on a snowy day with a lion and we just killed it. And so, we sort of feel like, I'll be honest with you, I think with all the kids and coaches, we sort of felt like one of David's mighty men that, we just went in and conquered something that wasn't supposed to be conquered. And, and sort of in our own way, God performed his, miracle through us of being able to battle and to just keep coming back. And then when we had that one shot for the kill shot, we made it, so I think, when you look at the whole thing and you take a picture of the whole season and know where we had been and, through our story time and how we'd been through David and the mighty men, it was just amazing how, God pulled all that together on that night and, which was incredible. And then, continuing on the story 2 weeks later, we wake up on Friday morning when it's time to go play our state championship game, and guess what's on the ground?
Snow.
I mean, how you can't write it like that. I mean, there's no way. First time in the history of Bryant-Denny Stadium at the University of Alabama, a game had been played in the snow, and so literally we went in and played on a snowy day, and so just amazing how God does things like that, and amazing how we lived out the stories. And so, as a coach, yes, that night was definitely one that we celebrated and we were, celebrating what God had done, what we had seen him do, and how, and he did some remarkable things during the season, with different guys. And, but just to see him continue to work, was just unbelievable. And I think for all the coaches and players, when it was over, being able to look at each other in the eye and realize God's hand was in it was incredible.
It's pretty awesome. We're talking to Patrick and Bo Nix here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. You can watch them, their Pinson Valley High School team, open up the season August 25th, a Saturday on ESPN at 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Central. They'll be going up against Hoover out of Birmingham, also a very good team, state champions on the 7A level. Let's talk about the Faith's perspective. I love the story. You kind of led us there a little bit, Patrick, from Faith. But this is a Faith and Sports podcast, and I'm always fascinated on the journey a little bit. So let's start with you, Patrick, and then I'll get to Bo, just kind of growing up in a Christian home. But for you, Patrick, when did that faith start to take shape for you? And was that something that you've had instilled from you from an early age, or was that something that kind of became real to you as you got older?
Well, my dad's a former high school coached for 42 years, extremely successful in Georgia, and the godliest man I've ever been around. And so I named my second son, his name is Caleb, and I named him after my dad because my dad is truly a Caleb, that when he walked in, he told them, hey, we can take this land, and 40 years later, he was still sharing the gospel when he retired from football. And he was for 42 years of his career, and I got to live it, for about 38 of those years. I got to watch him coach firsthand. I don't remember many a times where I didn't see him share the gospel and share Jesus Christ after a game with his team, and every opportunity he had to love on those kids and tell them who Jesus was, what Jesus meant to him. And so for me, I was very blessed to have a dad that showed me that and showed me how to be a Christian coach. And I quite honestly don't know any other way to do it. I don't, because of his example, I just don't know what else to do. And so, I'm very blessed that I grew up with it, saw it firsthand, saw lives change. And, because of him, my life is changed. And so, I've never known anything but, living for Jesus and doing everything I can to glorify him, because he's the one that's given me the ability to do what I do.
And Bo, how about that legacy with your grandfather and now your dad? Tell me about growing up and just kind of, obviously, faith, it sounds like it was instilled from you from the time you came out of the womb. So tell me about that.
Absolutely. Two major things in my life from a really early age were football and faith. and Jesus Christ. And so tying those two things together, it's just really been there from the time I can remember growing up, going to I call him Coach Dad. So going to Coach Dad's game on Friday night and then going to Dad's game on Saturday, it's just, to me, there wasn't anything better. And it just really, football season was great, and you knew what was to come. And so like I said, I grew up in it, and I don't know anything different. And being around Coach Dad for all those years, just growing up around him, knowing how he coached, seeing the way he influenced lives in a good way. And growing up also at his house, he would teach me football and teach me how to be a quarterback and all those little things that come with it. And so when I was in ninth grade, he actually coached with Dad at our last high school we were at, 9th and 10th grade. So I got him to coach me and my dad to coach me. So at the same time, those two had a hand in my life, and it was great.
So you're both in an area where, that's called the Bible Belt, certainly in Alabama, and faith is maybe more prominent or received or accepted. I don't like those words, but it's definitely, different, I guess, up here in the North. But I guess there's got to be people whose faith isn't as important to them or strong in, and maybe maybe they aren't believers, but yet your jobs, both as a quarterback and a coach, is to unite a team. And certainly you can do that leading with Christian principles, but making sure that you don't alienate, obviously, others who may not be where you are, I should say, in your faith walk. So tell me about that, Patrick, as a coach, and making sure that your team is unified, even without, I guess, alienating them from the faith perspective, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's something that we strive as a coaching staff, and I strive as a person, as a coach, to do, is to not alienate somebody just because their faith might not be the same as mine. And even if it's the same, it might not be on the same level as mine. Trying not to look down on them, trying not to make them think that they're any different than anybody else on that team. And, the biggest thing that I think I try to do is to make sure I love every kid, not because of anything they've done, not because of any, their mistakes, not mistakes. None of that really matters. And that's the way Christ did us. Christ loves us even though we're sinners. And so my job as a Christian, as a coach, is to love them no matter what situation they're in, whether they're a super strong Christian or whether they're as far from Christ as you can imagine. It's my job to love them and to make sure they know that I love them. And that's why I do what I do. And so I think that we try our best to do the best we can with letting them know that we love them, that letting them know, and for me, and I tell our guys, look, I can't help. This is who I am. Jesus Christ is a part of my life. He may not be a part of your life, but he's a part of my life. And so that's just going to influence the decisions I make and what I do. And so, but that doesn't mean that you're wrong or, that I'm going to make you feel like you're wrong or anything like that. I still love you.
Yeah.
But I still at the same time offer it to them and we try to find ways through Fellowship of Christian Athletes and different things that we can do to let them know about Jesus Christ and let them make decisions. And, obviously they don't have to decide. They don't have to even come to FCA. They don't have to do all those things, but we try to provide it. So if they do, because, I had an opportunity to play college football at Auburn, had an opportunity to beat Alabama in an incredible game, coming off the bench, throwing a touchdown pass, and I had a chance to live out my dream. And it was literally, after the game, one of the loneliest feelings of my life because I just accomplished my goal, but there was nothing there. And so for me, what I try to emphasize to these kids is that, hey, there's much more to life than football. There's much more to life than your girlfriend. There's much more to life than school. That eternity is a long time. And until we fill that void in our life with something that means something, that something can last for eternity, you're going to continue to have the void. And but that's something they've got to decide and they've got to do. But, for me, I've been there, done that, and I can, share my experiences with them and let them go. But I go back. We try to love the kids the best we can wherever they are, love them where they are.
Bo, do you approach that as well? I mean, you're still a high school quarterback, but you're also the leader, and you're the guy. You're the high school championship game MVP. So your team is looking at you as a player to be the leader on the field. Do you recognize that responsibility as well, as much as your dad was talking about?
Absolutely. Even though that I don't know as much as Dad would know about certain things, because he's been around for longer than I have,
Of course.
obviously. And so his experience with everything, and he's just seen so many different things in that situation, in that scenario. And so I just try to know my role in the situation and know that they are looking up to me and know that they do need that positive impact in their life. So whether it's leading them on the field or off the field, just setting that example, being that role model that they would look up to, trying to do the right thing all the time when I'm around them, and help them to know that it's not weird or different to be different and do what's right, and be a Christ follower at a high school, and is like not cussing and treating everybody with respect, and things like that is just ways that I try to influence guys without really pushing it on them.
Patrick and Bo Nix are our guests here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. So here we are, your senior year, Bo. You just went through the recruiting process. As your dad mentioned earlier, you're committed to Auburn for your college career following in your dad's footsteps. Can you take us through just the decision and why you chose Auburn?
Right. I was offered by Auburn in the 9th grade, and so along with many other schools. So recruiting hit pretty early. In my playing career, I didn't start full pads football until 7th grade. And so junior high was when I started my first official year of football. So 7th and 8th grade went on, and after my freshman season, I started getting offers by colleges. And so growing up, I always knew that Auburn would definitely be a dream school of mine. Seeing Dad play there and Mom go there, and most of my family being Auburn fans, and growing up watching guys like Cadillac Williams and Cam Newton just wanting to be in their shoes one day on the biggest level in Jordan-Hare Stadium. So when it really became a reality that it could happen, it was awesome. But I also didn't want to miss the chance of missing out on an opportunity, maybe picking the wrong school. So I made sure to visit other places and make sure that Auburn was the place that I wanted to be. And at the end of the day, I really honestly feel like Auburn is the best place for me, even though I've grown up being an Auburn fan and dreaming to play there. It just something about Auburn is different from every other place, and I just feel at home there, and I love it.
Patrick, you mentioned obviously playing quarterback at Auburn yourself from 1992 to 95. You played under some pretty great coaches, Terry Bowden, Tommy Bowden, Jimbo Fisher was there. When you were there, you passed, I got some numbers here, 4,957 yards and 31 touchdowns in your college career, even 9 rushing touchdowns. So you're obviously pretty mobile, and your team in 1993 went undefeated. So what was that like to watch your son go through this process that you went through, 25 years earlier, 26 years earlier, and then for him to choose the school that you went to?
Well, the process is so different now than what it was 30 years ago. Now with social media and the internet, people have a hard time believing that at one time there was no internet, no emails, no cell phones. Those things didn't exist when we were coming through being recruited. And so it was much more regional when I was being recruited. I say that I actually went out to UCLA and took a visit, but most of the time guys stayed close to home and you didn't go way off, anything like that. So, but recruiting has drastically changed. And so all of a sudden Bo is we're taking trips to Ohio State and Clemson, Florida State. We're going all these places, and and you're thinking, we're trying to decide. He's trying to decide what's going to be the best fit for him, and so you're praying. Our prayer was that he would go somewhere that he would be comfortable, and that he would have an experience like I did at his own place, and we wanted his school and his career to be his own, and did not necessarily. He didn't have to follow Dad, didn't have to go to Auburn, any of that kind of stuff, but we wanted him to truly go out and do his own thing, and he did. And I think in the end, I don't think it really mattered whether Dad went to Auburn or not. I think in the end he truly felt and feels that is the best place for him when it comes to academically, socially, athletically, spiritually, all the way around. I think he truly felt that was the best place for him, and it just happens to be where his mom and I went, where his older sister goes, and we're very thankful for that. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm tickled to death and excited that he's going there.
Of course.
But at the same time, if he'd have chosen Ohio State or Clemson or somewhere like that, then we would have been just as supportive and excited, and knowing that was the place for him. And but he truly, I believe, realizes and knows that Auburn is the place for him, and it's very exciting for sure.
Well, War Eagle, I'm sure, all over the Nix household. We're talking to Patrick and Bo Nix here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. Let's close with this. And again, it's been really fun to get to know you guys and hear your journey and your story. From the spiritual side, let's close it with something from the Bible, maybe that kind of is near and dear to both of you. I know you mentioned the David and Goliath story, which I thought was great. But we'll start with Bo, and then we'll go with Patrick. Is there a Bible verse that you cling to, something that you rely on, something that you kind of maybe developed as a life verse? Or maybe a Bible story that you cling to?
There's many Bible stories and verses that Dad will come up with as we go along through a season or maybe off season that he'll throw out on us, and we'll really just meditate on those, and they're always great. But obviously you have a favorite, and mine would be Colossians 3:23. And whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as you're working for the Lord, not for man. Yeah. And just in this situation that I'm in, I think that's really just important, and understanding and knowing why you're doing what you're doing. And you know that He gave you all the talents that you have, and doing anything else besides that would disrespect Him in the long run. So just be faithful with Him for what He's done in my life. And so working with all my heart, like I'm doing it for Him, is to me, there's no better verse for my situation, and so that's why it's my favorite verse.
How about you, Patrick? A verse that you lean on, and maybe what the Lord's been teaching you with that verse?
Well, I'd probably go with Deuteronomy 33, where Moses is taking the Israelites out of captivity. They come through the Red Sea. They've wandered in the desert, and it's finally time to go into the Promised Land. And God tells them He's not going with them because they had disobeyed Him again and built the altar and or the idol, and and basically Moses pleads with Him and begs Him and says, "Hey God, you've got to go with us. You've come with us this far. You've got to go with us. If you don't send me." And if you don't go with us, what else will distinguish us from everybody else in the world? And so for me and for my household and our team, it's sort of the same thing, that if God's not going with us, I don't want to go. And then if I don't show Christ, then what separates me from the rest of the world? I might as well just be just like everybody else. So I think that whole chapter right there, because and anybody listening, read Deuteronomy 33, one of the most powerful chapters in the world, or in the Bible. When actually Moses has an encounter face to face with God, and just incredible through that whole chapter. But the bottom line is if God doesn't go with me wherever I'm going, I sure don't want to go. And if I don't live for Him and don't take Him with me, then what else is going to distinguish me and my family and our team from everybody else? I'd rather have God go with me and people say that He's a Christ follower than to have any riches or wins or whatever. Let that be what really distinguishes me and my family and our team from others, not how good we are, how big we are, how much money we have, any of that kind of stuff, but that we're Christ followers, and that's what distinguishes us.
He is Patrick Nix, head football coach at Pinson Valley High School. State championship win last year, and his son Bo Nix, Pinson Valley High School quarterback, 2017 high school state championship game MVP, on his way to Auburn to play for Auburn. We're excited about watching them Saturday, August 25th on ESPN, 11 a.m. Central, 12 p.m. Eastern, as they open up their high school football season and defend their state championship title. It has been a treat to get to know both of you, Patrick and Bo. Thanks for joining us here on the podcast, and look forward to watching this season, how it plays out, and maybe we'll get you back in the off season before college starts next year. Look forward to talking to you. Thanks again.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we do thank Patrick and Bo Nix for joining us here on the Sports Spectrum podcast. Patrick, of course, the head football coach at Pinson Valley High School, and Bo, his son, the starting quarterback and last year's high school state championship game MVP. Bo, of course, following in his dad's footsteps on his way to play college football at the University of Auburn in 2019. You can watch them play and open up their high school football scheduled Saturday, August 25th on ESPN at 11 a.m. Central, 12 p.m. Eastern. That's Pinson Valley against Hoover on ESPN. Some good high school football there. Check that out. And man, that just gets me fired up to think about football. We get to watch football. I can't wait for the football season to begin. So we thank Patrick and Bo. We also thank you for listening, and we thank Compassion International for sponsoring this podcast. $38 a month. Man, we always wonder, where can we help? Where can we make a difference? Where can we send our money that we know it's going to help someone? Compassion International is the place to do that. $38 a month, and you can sponsor a child, make a difference in a child's life, and release them from poverty, giving them hope. Every child deserves hope, and you can make that happen through Compassion International. Go to compassion.com, simply click on the icon there, compassion.com/sportspectrum, and you'll see all the children there. You can pray about it, pick a child, sponsor that child, and man, you just release them from poverty. It's that simple and that powerful. $38 a month. Go to compassion.com/sportspectrum. Sponsor a child today. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. As always, you can leave a review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts. You can also email me directly with any guest ideas on the intersection of sports and faith. My email is jason@sportspectrum.com. And you can also find us on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, and of course on YouTube, where all of our podcasts are found. And every single piece of content that we have with Sports Spectrum can be found at sportspectrum.com. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Have a great rest of your day. This is the Sports Spectrum Podcast.